You're listening to the Broken Meeple Show, a podcast that speaks passionately about board games for the benefit of those who play them. My name's Luke Hector, best known for the Broken Meeple YouTube channel, and I'm an everyday gamer just like you. And I'll be talking about reviews, top 10s, and just about anything that connects me to board games, as long as I have a tea or coffee in hand, that is. So grab a cup, relax, and enjoy. And remember, it's only a game. Hi everyone, episode 112. Hopefully you won't hear the laptop or anything because I can't get it to shut up with its fan. The problem is that using Google Chrome is great for a lot of things, and I still like using Google Chrome. The problem is that it opens up a lot of processes, and laptops don't have all the memory bandwidth to handle a lot of those processes without wanting to cool itself down, particularly as it is quite warm now. So constantly the fan wants to be on a laptop. I am tempted to download something like maybe Opera browser on my laptop and use that instead. Maybe that will be less intensive and maybe the laptop will shut up for a minute, but it gets a little bit annoying. But otherwise, I didn't do a podcast last week because I went home for Easter to visit the parents. It's typically family time Easter, so I like to take a break, and I was tempted to wait 2 weeks after that, but then I thought a whole month without a podcast. I thought, nah, you know what, I'll do one now, and even then I'm doing it on Saturday night because I didn't feel like doing it on Sunday morning, because I got a bit of a busy day tomorrow. I've had a week off work, which has been nice to catch up with some general stuff at home, play some solo games, a lot of Ark Nova, a lot of Spirit Island, some Marvel Champions, get a couple of extra purchases in, just generally chill and play a lot of Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, I've definitely been progressing a bit through that and enjoying it, as on with like Monster Hunter Wilds and various stuff like that. So yeah, I've tried to take a week off, but sadly I do have to go back to work next week, and it's the first week in a while that hasn't been a 4-day week. Sigh. Oh well, you can't escape work forever, not unless I win the lottery, and I can still dream, but if only that day would come sooner rather than later. But yeah, otherwise generally fine. The health isn't too bad. I'm feeling the after effects of a rather indulgent month, so I definitely do need to lose a bit of weight, so I'm definitely a bit more cardio focused at the moment, and trying to sort of not eat and drink too much rubbish now as we go into May. But otherwise, generally not a huge amount to report. The occasional cool thing, the occasional thing with the blog, there's been a lot of effort gone into the last couple of videos that I've done, those being the top it's not really a top list. It was originally going to be top 10 solo games until I realized I couldn't actually rank 10 solo games if I tried. So I decided just to basically comment about 25 games in general, and I may even have to do another 25 at some point later in the year. But this has been met with a lot of positive response so far. I mean, we're already up like 10,000 views on the first one. I only released it on the 24th. That's literally a day and a half ago. And I've just issued the second part about a couple of hours ago tops, and that's already at 1,300. So yeah, clearly a lot of people wanted me to comment on these, and well, there you go. And given how successful these are, I'm definitely going to do another 25 at some point later in the year. Maybe not too much later in the year, but I'm not going to do them like next week or anything, because that's just a bit much. These ones do take a while to edit. But the interesting thing that's come from this, and I would really, I'll get onto that in a minute actually. Otherwise, also done since the last one, the Best and Worst series has made a resurgence with Garfield Games. I've done a big talk on that, and granted that is going to have some very different opinions to some people on what I consider to be their worst stuff, but, different strokes, different folks. I have done a first impressions, effectively, review of Apex Legends, a new game from, Glass Cannon Unplugged, big Kickstarter that's sent out, so check out my early impressions on that. I do recommend hearing my thoughts on that. They're not like terrible thoughts, but there is definitely something you need to be aware of if you're thinking about getting this game. And then, of course, I've also done a couple of reviews for Wondrous Creatures and Life of the Amazonia. This is 2 games from Bad Comic Games, who have been very nice to send me those review copies, and I've been quite impressed with both of those games, although they are not without their flaws. So definitely check out my thoughts on them, both good and bad. But yeah, quite a bit of content since the last podcast, and, a decent amount of views as well. As for what's coming, there's not a huge amount, really, because I haven't really got any games to review. I mean, I bought Thunder Road Vendetta. It's on the table over there, just on a whim. I want to try it out. I've seen it being played at the club. I could review that one, maybe. But I know I'm being sent a new lightweight 2-player game, I believe, from Alley Cat Games. I've forgotten its name, but it's their new 2-player game, so they're sending me that. But other than that, I don't know what else I'm being sent for review. I've had an email saying, do I want to review Flip 7? So, although I think that's just mostly an Instagram post about Flip 7, it's not really a game that warrants a full review, but I'd be interested to check that out. I've seen that being played as well, just a nice little light game. But yeah, there's not much in the limelight for big reviews, so it means that I can move on to some other content, like, best and worst, or for example, the 25 solo games that I did, that was different, and a top 10 list or two. I mean, I want to try and do a top 10 list for games I've warmed up to, rather than cooled down on. Somebody had a Patreon viewer had that idea, and I want to try and do that list. So the only problem I've had so far is that the short list is basically 10 games. There's not a lot. So, there's definitely, I think, probably just going to be a list of 10 as opposed to a short list ranking down. However, I want to ask people something about this. I had some interesting comments on these solo games, and a lot of these comments, I mean, they're all positive, no problem. I mean, I've only had to deal with one troll lately, so on a different video. But I've had some interesting, thoughts on this. A lot of people commented, thanks for the list, thanks for this list, blah, 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 and thank you for not ranking them. And there was quite a few, not just one, not just like a little minority. It felt like there was a fair few comments, like more than usual. Because normally if like 1 or 2 people think something, I'm not that fussed. But, when I get like 7 or 8 people say this, even though there's like a couple hundred comments there, that doesn't sound like a lot of people, but it's enough for a bit of like, okay, this is obviously a shared thought here. So I'm interested to know, what exactly do you think about ranking games? Top 10 lists, for example. I love top 10 lists. I love watching them. And I quite like seeing games ranked in their opinions, see what, or like videos, movies, that kind of thing. But, it's interesting that a few people have said they don't really care if they're ranked or not. They just want to see a list of 10. And does that actually affect your desire to watch a video, if they're ranked or not? Because I only did these 25 solo games just whatever. I didn't care about ranking them. I just spoke about 25 games, and I'll do the same next time. But does it make a difference? I mean, obviously my top 50 I rank anyway, but is it better now to do top 10 lists these days that only have 10 games and that's it? You just say 10 games that I warmed up to. It's not top 10 anymore. Is that just a consensus? Is that just something that's changed in consumer one? So I'd be interested to know your thoughts on that. Get those in the comments. Is ranking now a thing of the past? Are you not fussed about ranked top 10 lists anymore? You just want to see a list of 10 games, with my thoughts, which is essentially the same thing, just without the ranking part. I mean, it's not that difficult to change if I had decided to do that. I don't know how that would affect the YouTube algorithm, the YouTube algorithm to do that, because normally top 10 is quite a popular search term, but 10 games I recommend. I mean, what would you call it? Yeah, 10 games I recommend, 10 games in my opinion. 10 games in my opinion could work, but we'll have to. I'd be interested to know your thoughts. I'm just really curious, because that was an unexpected response I got on the solo games vids. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. The only other update I want to mention is a positive one, because I have been saying for a while that I wasn't going to attend the UK Games Expo. It's getting too expensive. There's no real new games being released. Not really. You might get some preview demo games, but that's about it. And other than the social aspect, there's not a huge amount of reason for me to be at the UK Games Expo at these points. It just doesn't seem like there's enough there to justify the stupidly expensive hotel costs, travel costs, food costs while you're there. Everything is hyper inflated in terms of cost, and it doesn't really justify it. Now, I was thinking, you know what, I don't feel like going. It's not worth the cash. I'm going to save it for something like Essen, which I'm already going to anyway. And a lot of consumers have been saying this. I had a lot of people say, yeah, I'm not going to the expo either. So this could be a quiet expo at this rate. But the thing is, things have changed. I will be going to the UK Games Expo. And why this has changed is mainly because of two things. A very handy friend and a very handy publisher. Yeah, the accommodation was still ridiculously expensive, no matter where I went. I mean, I even tried to, you've got Birmingham in sort of like top left a bit, but then you then have like Coventry that some people like to stay. I even tried to stay as far as Rugby, which is the next like big city, like town or city, further on from Coventry to train in. And the hotels are still like, 60, £70 a night, and it's just impossible to get like cheap B&Bs anymore. They just don't seem to exist. So accommodation was becoming a problem. But Mark from Ninja Geek Games apparently has Airbnb set up, and it's a bit of a distance, about 35 minutes away from the con, which is a bit much, but oh well, needs must. I mean, to be fair, the previous year I stayed at a Days Inn on the motorway, and I think it still took me a good 25 minutes to get there from there, so what's an extra 10 minutes, I guess. But he's kindly very offered me a spot in their Airbnb. I've never actually stayed in an Airbnb before, funny enough. I've always stayed in a proper hotel or an apart hotel. Never an Airbnb. It's kind of weird. But if I haven't fully certified it yet because he's away, but if this goes ahead, then fantastic. I will take the slot because the cost will be a lot lower. Not to mention we can play some games in the evening. It'd be quite fun. So thank you very much, Mark. If this does go ahead and you do have a spare bed, then yeah, thank you very much, Mark. But the other thing is that I am going to be, regardless if this doesn't go ahead, I will still find another hotel and stay at it, even though it's an inflated cost. I will do it because the main reason that I can come along is the second part, the publisher. Yes, I found somebody I could demo games with, and as much as I would still love to be demoing stuff for Czech Game Editions, they always seem to have their own team sorted in advance, which is a bit of a shame, because, there's a lot of those games I would happily, like, Lost Ruins of Arnak, SETI, Under Falling Skies, I'd teach Pulsar 2849, I'd teach any of those games in a heartbeat. But, I searched around trying to find out if anybody else was doing it. I know Alley Cat Games had put a message out a while back. I was a bit late and, hadn't heard much message from others. But very kindly, Dranda Games have allowed me to join their demo team. So, typical arrangement. I will be there, and I'm expected to, appear for a bunch of hours during the thing, as well as help set up. Not a problem, because I'm there for the press preview, so I'm already there on the day before when they need to set up, so why not put that time to good use? But they're basically going to get me to demo on Dranda Games, so I don't know what time slots I'm in or anything like that. I just know that for about 12 to 15 hours I'm expected to help out, so I will probably do a bit on every day. Probably. Maybe I'll do a lot on Saturday and not as much on Sunday and Friday. Who knows? It's up to them. At the end of the day, they need me when they need me, so I'm not going to be too fussy on that. But this means that I'll be there demoing stuff like Navoria and Galactic Cruise. I don't think that they don't have Isle of Train, so I can't demo that one. But maybe I'll just bring that one as a small box in the bag, and then if you want to play it, I'll teach you it. We'll call it extracurricular activity on behalf of Dranda Games as a payment for them being nice enough to put me on the team. But on top of that, I don't know what else they've got. I mean, I've not played Pioneer Rails yet, so I can't demo that one, and I haven't played their new Mutagen one that they're sort of trying to set up for 2025, so I can't really demo that. So I suspect I'll predominantly just be teaching Navoria and Galactic Cruise. Well, that's fine. Navoria is a very easy game to teach, and Galactic Cruise is still on my shelf down there, and that'll be a good one to teach. Although I am going to have to come up with some kind of script, because there is no way that people are going to play the full game of it. So hopefully they've got a script in mind. I know the Board Game Wizard, who's demoed Galactic Cruise with them before, had one. It was really, really good. But maybe I could ask Paul Grogan to see if he knows one. But yeah, either way, I need to come up with some kind of script for that game, because you can't play a full game of Galactic Cruise as a demo. So I need some way to teach the rules quick or guide them through it. So I better do some research. But yeah. So that means that I can offset some of the cost of going to the expo. I never need 2.5 days, 3 days or whatever in the trade hall. I mean, the press preview gives me most of what I need to know, and then I try a few demos, and then I'm kind of done, and the rest of the time I just spend playing games with people. Well, I am going to be traveling light. I don't intend to bring a full bag of games with me into the halls. It's too much. You don't play most of them. I'm just, I'm walking around talking to people. I get pulled into other games, which means I don't need the games that are in my bag. Sometimes I get pulled into a preview or like a prototype thing, like, Paul Grogan's arranged for me to play Black Forest last year. I didn't expect it, but great. Well, that used up a fair bit of time. So I just don't see the point in me bringing games. Now, I might bring Isle of Trains, because I could literally stash that in a small bag. That's not a problem. So I'll probably bring that one, maybe a couple of fillers. But I'm not going to bring any big box games like I had before, because I just can't carry them. You know, having big stuff on your back is a pain in the butt in the UK Games Expo or any convention, frankly. And I'm not getting any younger. My shoulders are not great at holding that massive drum bag full of games on a regular basis. It kills. So, yes, you can leave some stuff in the cloakroom, and then it's faff and it's cost, and it's just like, what is the point? So I'm going to be traveling very minimalistic. You know, I'm more than happy to play games with you, because once the trade fair shuts, I will be available to play games and just hang out and do stuff. I don't plan to go to any shows or anything, or any, like, you know, podcasts or anything like that. So I'll just be free. I mean, I might go back to the B&B thing to play with Mark and co for games, and that might happen, but otherwise I'll be on site and able to just hang out. So yeah, like I say, a lot of this is kind of in flux, because I've literally only in the last couple of days actually made these kind of arrangements. But yeah, suffice to say, if all of this goes ahead, so let's not say it's 100% certain, but let's say it's now crept from 5% certainty to 95% certainty, I'm going to be at the Games Expo. So I look forward to seeing you all there. All right, well, let's get on with the show. Let's start with a game that I played at HandyCon recently. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. HandyCon. I'm going to other HandyCon events. That's great. I'm also going to go to Manorcon. Yep, I've been talked into it. Graham and a few others who help run the show at Manorcon. They have twisted my wrist, and I've agreed to go back to Manorcon. I took a bit of a hiatus from there because I didn't like how hot it got at Leicester Uni, and it was quite a distance to travel. It was like, oh great, another UK Games Expo travel. It's quite a bit, and I would roast alive at Leicester Uni. There was no decent ventilation. It was horrible, especially in the rooms where you had to stay accommodation-wise. Oh my god. When you wake up as basically a sick, soggy bag of sweat, it's not pleasant. But apparently it's now at Northampton Uni, which looks a lot more modern, a lot more well ventilated, air conditioned, and it's the first time at the new site. So you know what? I'm going to give it another try, especially when in July it's going to get bloody hot, and I'm going to want to get as far away from the south of England as humanly possible, especially my new build house, because it will literally be a furnace. So you know what? I'll take an air-conditioned uni anytime. So I look forward to seeing you at Manorcon. Yep, already booked the accommodation and the tickets. I'll be there the entire weekend. So, well, actually, yeah, it's weird. It runs from like Friday to Monday. It's kind of odd. But yeah, I should be there for the majority of the convention, if not all of it. So we'll see. But yeah, anyway, moving on. All right, a game I played at HandyCon, though. This was one that my friend got as a, a Kickstarter. And I'd been offered to review it, but for some reason I kind of turned it down. I think it was mainly just because of the beigeness of it. I thought, like, this isn't really one that I desperately need to review, and it was quite busy at the time. But this is Calimala. Calimala. And I do mean Calimala, not Kalima. For anybody who's an Indiana Jones fan, I can't help but call this one Kalima at times, because the first thing that pops into my head when I say that name is basically ripping out hearts in Temple of Doom. Anyone remember that film? Yeah, it was like Kalima Shadide. So it's just like insane. So I keep calling this one that, but I digress. Calimala is a beige euro. Oh god, is it a beige euro? I mean, listen to this tagline. Cloth merchants compete for majorities using a unique action selection system. Oh god, that's beige. And the front cover, beige. Or at least some of it's beige. So, yeah, okay, I wasn't exactly desperate to jump into this one. But you know what? It said 75-minute playing time. It's nice to actually get a short game every once in a while. And if it is a beige euro and it turns out to be pretty sweet, then great, I'm in for that. I mean, you could argue that River of Gold, one that I really like, is kind of a beige euro. I mean, there's not really much theme in it or anything. It just looks prettier than the beige euro. That one only takes about 75 minutes to play, if that. So, yeah, if the game is short, then that sort of thing doesn't bug me as much. Designed by Fabio Lopiano, and that's a little bit of a problem for me, because the guy, as far as I'm aware, is genuinely a nice person, although I've barely met the guy. But the thing is that his track record is not really my kind of shtick. I mean, Merv, I sort of like. It's alright, but I don't love it. I have no interest in Ragusa, or whatever it was. I not played Zapotec. Autobahn was fine, but it was very messy. Free Wing Circus I didn't particularly like. Sancor I really don't like. I not quite close to hate territory, but I really dislike Sancor. It's got a lot of things about it that I don't like. Shackleton Base, 6 out of 10 at most, that's all I thought. Baghdad, the City of Peace, the new Kickstarter from Alicat, I'm actually a bit more on board with that. But again, that is a beige point salad. There's only so much excitement I can get for that. So, yeah, the style of games are not generally for me. But you know what? Open mind, jump in, let's see what Calimala had to give me. So, this has got Ian O'Toole's artwork. It's a new edition. It's been blinged up a bit. And to be fair, for a beige Euro, it looks alright. Although, let's face it, it's beige all over, as you can see from the picture. It's got tokens, and it's got cubes. Yeah, what do you expect? I mean, this is a cube pushing game. I think the only thing that was... I mean, these look like prototype discs. I think you get like better discs, like action discs in the actual game. Yeah, something like this. But whoopee-doo. I mean, it's one of those things where I think this is the main board. I think it looks different on the prototype board I had a second ago. But you know that phrase, you are polishing it? Yeah, I mean, the game's not exactly a looker, okay? It's a very generic beige Euro. And I think the problem is I'm getting pictures here of the older version rather than the new version. And it's a little difficult to actually... I mean, I'm assuming that this is the old version. So the one I had must have been the new version. This is the thing. Board Game Geek is bad at doing, you know, stuff like this. It's really kind of a pain. But we're just going to use this picture for now because I think this is the best one to kind of illustrate. But basically what you do is you have these actions laid out randomly at the start of the game on this grid, 3x3 grid. And you place your action disc in between two of the action tiles to trigger the action. But it stacks on top of other players' action pawns. So the idea is that when you go there, you take the actions of both sides, and then the counter below you takes the actions, then the counter below that takes the actions, and so on. But if you get to 4, the bottom one goes on this top row here as a scoring thing, and basically all the different aspects of the game, which is like, you know, 3 different church locations, 4 different resource tracks, 3 different shipping areas, 3 different trade centers. You know, all of these will score at some point during the game, and you know at the start of the game when they're going to trigger, earlier rather than late. And the idea is that you're basically trying to time it so that when the scoring happens, you are in the lead. And it's basically everything is a majority. Majority cubes, majority cubes, majority cubes. And that's about as exciting as it gets. I mean, it's not a bad game, but I do have a couple of problems with it. But it's difficult to get excited about a game that is beige as that. It really is just that. And you know, there's some cool aspects. Firstly, the rules are very simple. The rules are very simple, did not take long to teach, and did actually keep to its kind of 75-minute playtime. I mean, at most, 90 minutes with a full player count, including the teach. That's pretty good going. I gotta give credit that it's actually stuck to its guns in terms of how long it is. And so the game does not outstay its welcome. It sort of gets on with it, snowballs at the end, and then you're good. And it's, you know, it's smooth and it doesn't feel clunky. But well, as long as you keep track of whose turn it is when you're triggering all these different counters. The problem is that there's just not a lot of excitement here. I mean, this is all it is. It's you collect you collect some wood, some cloth, some brick. You put cubes on the board and you try to get area majorities. Area majorities is not a favorite mechanic of mine in general. And like I say, I'm struggling to get excited about it or passionate because it's just so bland. It's bland and meh. You know, it's not bad. It runs and there is some, you know, decent sort of thinkiness to it. It's simple and that, but that's about as exciting as it gets. There's nothing much to it. But there is a big problem with the game that I don't like. I mean, I do like the scoring aspect. I like the fact that you know ahead of time when these things are going to score, so you can kind of plan ahead as to when you're going to get a lot of the same type, or when a certain row is, and you've got to try and sneak in there. I mean, those sort of things are cool. And the turn angst of where you're going to put your action disc in between those actions and try and get as many actions as possible when other people take their turns is pretty cool. But there's a problem. It's quite a chaotic game. You don't know when you're going to get actions from players jumping on top of your action disc. So your benefits are when you get them could be at a good time, could be at a bad time. but you've no way to predict it. On top of that, this game has action cards. These cards that you can see at the bottom of the picture here, they're action cards. They're basically bonus actions. If it's impossible for you to do the action that you have to do when somebody triggers it, you get action cards. And these basically are all the 9 actions on the board. Just you can play them at one point during your turn, and they're like bonuses. These range from being somewhat useful to downright overpowered. Like, being able to get free resources is insane because, resources is the key thing in this game. So being able to get a bunch of resources as a bonus time at any point you need it is pretty nasty, whereas some of the other ones are more dependent on timing. But the other thing is that this leads to a heavy amount of chaos. I mean, there's already a luck factor for which cards you draw. I mean, I might draw 3 cards and they might be useless for me. Like, they're not going to be of much use to me because they're actions that I'm either not doing or don't have the resources for. Whereas somebody else could draw the exact stuff they need or just spam it on the resources so they got more stuff. So there's already that luck aspect. But it also adds to the chaos because it's already chaotic when you've got a lot of players. I mean, playing this with 5, I can't imagine wanting to play this with 5. That just sounds like hell. 4 is already chaotic. 3 is actually not too bad. 3 is kind of a sweet spot again. But 5, why would you want 5 people? You would not be able to control anything before your turn came back round. But these action cards basically allow people to do crazy stuff when you don't expect it. So you might already have easy area majority on a particular thing, and it's going to score by the time it gets back round to you. You have set yourself up on your turn that when this scores, you'll be fine. And then a player on their turn just happens to draw a bonus card that gives them exactly what they need in order to completely screw you over. You have no way to predict this. You have no way to defend yourself from this. It just happens. That gets annoying, and it gets annoying quite fast. I mean, I played a couple of games of this, and both games this was a problem. The second game especially, there was countless times when I've done, here's my turn, done it, right, this is cool, we're set up. And then multiple times, other players are like, well, I'll play this action card, which allows me to do this. That means I can go there and I can completely screw you over. 3 times in a row, I swear this happened on scoring. Just me getting screwed over because somebody drew a lucky bonus card. I'd love to draw more bonus cards. The problem is, I don't know when people are going to trigger my actions. And if I can do the action, I can't take a bonus card. So it's luck and chaos. And I know the game is short to justify a bit of that, but I don't know. It's a punishing type of chaos. A bit of chaos where it's a bit of fun, fine, but chaos where it punches you in the face, in a game where the scores, it's literally 3, 2, and 1 victory points for every time it scores. There's not a lot of differential. It's a little bit insane, and if one person gets far into the lead, sort of nearest the end, you've no way really of catching them up. There's a few objectives for scoring at the end of the game. Some of them are hidden from you. I find those a bit lackluster as well because it's pretty easy to figure out what other players are holding in the hand based on the way things are going, and it's not like you can really prepare for it because by the time you figure out what they've got, they've already gone mad on it, so you're just playing a losing battle anyway. It's I don't know, there's some things that irk me, but the game is not bad. I don't dislike it. I don't particularly like it either. It's just bang smack in the middle. This is very much a meh average game for me. It's like, if I have to play it, I'll play it just because it's a relatively short game, but I'm never going to request it. I'm not really that into these kind of beige Euros anyway, and this one just feels a bit too chaotic in a bad way. There's chaos in a fun way, and then there's chaos in a negative way, and I think this one goes down that negative path, especially when you add more players. I mean, 4 players is already pretty chaotic. 5 just sounds like hell. 3 is probably the way I'll play this. I can't remember if you can even play this 2-player, and even then 2-player sounds like a bad idea. It probably has some weird, I don't know, it actually just says 3 players minimum, so if there is a 2-player rule, I don't know how, or maybe it's just Board Game Geek hasn't updated, I don't know, but yeah, it's an okay game, but that's about all I can really say. It's difficult to get excited about it, but I don't really dislike it either. It's just meh. It's beige. What more do you want to know? Okay, I don't normally talk about these much, but I'm going to start doing this on podcasts. I'm going to sort of do a kind of like Kickstarter watch. And that's because I don't do a lot of Kickstarters anymore. It's too expensive, UK VAT and stuff. But basically, if I am interested personally in a Kickstarter, I might just comment on a couple during the podcast and just sort of show them on screen. So first up, we're going to talk about Earth Animal Kingdom. This is one that I'm definitely interested in. Hopefully I'll be able to get a prototype of the expansion to review for you, like I did with the Abundance one, which we are still waiting for in the UK. The UK has still not got their copies of it, which is kind of annoying because I really want to get the prototype copy out of my box. But, this is new Animal Kingdom expansion. So, not too expensive. I mean, you're talking about, less than $30 to grab it, which is kind of typical for an expansion these days. But you get all these really cool Meeples in it and a bunch of cards with unique animals on it. And the idea is that these are asymmetric animal powers. So not only do you have asymmetric powers, which is cool, but then you also have this kind of like Meeple that moves around your board. So you've got, it depends on the ability, I guess. Some are going to be different than others, but they basically roam around through cards on your tableau and activate their abilities. So you've got this other little kind of spatial awareness thing, or this little cool Meeple to go around your board, as well as a global ability that you can trigger every round. So it's like, you know what, this is quite cool, and it makes the fauna objectives a bit more impactful. Now, I'm surprised that they needed to buff those in any way, because fauna objectives are pretty damn important anyway. But I guess maybe because the differential in points varies. I mean, if you go mad on them, you're going to wipe the floor with other players, but then if you're kind of evened out, then the differential is not huge. Maybe that was their realm of thinking. But yeah, you know what? I'm up for this. I'm up for more Earth content because I love the game, and just getting the expansion on its own, not too expensive. Although there are a few things in here that do make me wince a bit. Firstly, this is a free gift, and it's a fauna tree upgrade. So basically, it's a cardboard 3D structure of a tree with platforms that you can put the fauna objectives on, as well as stuff from Animal Kingdom and that. Do we really need this? This has got gimmick written all over it. I mean, does anybody like the way that the Everdell tree gets in the way of everything and just ends up being a pain in the butt? This is basically an Everdell tree for Earth. It's going to be more annoying than anything else. I mean, you got to store it for a kickoff. So where am I going to store this thing? You expect me to assemble this every single game? Hell no. So this just feels like an unnecessary thing, and yet it is also an add-on. If I'm getting it for free, then whatever, but yeah, this is just not something I was asking for. And the other thing is that there's a few mini add-ons you can get. I mean, I was not interested in the deluxe resources because I just think they are way too expensive. I mean, they're like £80 to £100 or something to get all of those. And I just think it's overkill because the game already looks nice enough as it is. And you don't want more bigger stuff. And not to mention you got to store it. There's the game Disasters mini module. The idea that you've got disasters which could hurt other players, I don't like the sound of that. This game does not need take that elements, so I'm definitely going to be passing on that. I was kind of annoyed that Earth never, what was it? I think they've got my review. Have they got my review of Abundance in here or Earth? I don't think they have, and this does make me a little bit sad. Yeah, they don't have a lot of videos for it in general. Oh no, wait, no video preview. Yep, preview. Yeah, so so basically they've got the preview videos on there, but they don't really have, anything for like reviews of Earth in general, which is kind of weird because you'd think you'd want to advertise the game as well. But yeah, they got a few like seals and that. I feel like I've given them the seal of distinction. But, they haven't put it on there for me, which is kind of a shame, but oh well. It happens sometimes. It doesn't happen on other times. But, yeah, so we've got... I'll just double check. I'm not blind. Nope, not blind. It's not there. But, yeah, the expansion I'm definitely grabbing, but I'm not interested in these add-ons. I mean, these add-ons, extra... The ridiculous resources I don't want. I'm also not interested. I mean, I would like a new storage solution because this is definitely going to have to be a separate box. There's no way it will fit in my current organizer. And I could look at this, but then even this insert from LaserOx has box lift, and I hate box lift. I want a box to store everything. The problem is you got to pay down 50 like something other dollars on top of the everything new cost in order to get it. I think normally it's like a I think it's normally like an $80 upgrade if you buy it as a separate add-on. That's a bit expensive, mate. And then you got these Game Topper playmats. That picture looks fantastic on this Game Topper playmat. I would love to have that on my desk. Do you want to know how much it is? What have we got? $70 base. $80, $100, depending on how big you want it to be. I know these game topper mats are expensive, but Jesus Christ, I love, if you can hear my mobile phone in the distance, sorry. But, yeah, I don't normally spend that much on play mats, okay? Not that kind of levels of cash. And the box is, how much is the box? $110. I mean, this is getting to the point where Earth is costing way too much for what it is. The resource packs is another $75. It's like, okay, I love Earth. It's in my top 10 games ever, but this is going a little bit far. So I'm just interested in the expansion, and I'll leave it at that. Alright, and the other one I want to do, which has just gone over €1,000,000, well done, Awakened Realms, although I'm not surprised because this is This War of Mine, and this is definitely a popular game, not to mention one that people have wanted to see a second edition of for a while. This is a game that I have on the table right there, actually, because I need to see what I want from this, but I've got the first edition, retail version, and the expansions, and I have touted the praises of this game being probably one of the most thematic games I've ever played. It is also one of the best storytelling games I've ever played because it is so gritty, so dark, you care for these people. The expansion Days of the Siege, which has been renamed to Fall On Hope add-on, which you do need to be aware of on that. It is like, oh my god, it's so good to play as a solo player and indulge in some of this theme every now and again. It's been a while since I played it though, time and learning the rules and stuff, and it's got quite a few add-ons, but this is now a chance for people to come in brand new, and that's good. Because it would be nice for people to come in brand new, because I think originally the retail version I've got there was sold by Galactica Games, and they were kind of like a spin-off, just like distribution. And, they're hit and miss in terms of their, production and, distribution in that sense. So this one is going to be entirely Awakened Realms. Awakened Realms have got a pretty good track record at doing good production when it comes to all their Kickstarters. So, it means that you're going to get a pretty nifty version. I'm almost tempted to get the second edition box just to replace my first edition one. Somebody can buy my first edition one cheap and then I can just have this new one. So it's very tempting. But yeah, if you want to get into this game, now's the chance. Is it cheap? No, I would not say it's cheap. It's Awakened Realms. Of course it's not cheap. You pay for what you get with Awakened Realms. But, you've got a standard edition, so you can buy a typical priced amount for €65 plus VAT, sales tax and all that lot. And, or you can play the 95 version, which is basically to get the sort of upgraded version, which has bigger box and miniatures and some other bits and bobs in there, like dual layer trays and material bags and stuff and plastic markers rather than cardboard. So there's some cool stuff there. Both of them are going to have a bunch of stretch goals. So you've got all these different expansions and scenarios which came in expansion form before, like something got the what was it called? Oh, it's on my wall actually. Tales from the Ruined City. So you got stuff in there that's going to be pre-built into the game, as well as some other bits and bobs from the first Kickstarter. So there's a lot of content there, and they're adding stretch goals all the time. So they've already done 2 stretch goals to add more scenarios. So there's going to be plenty of content, and these sculpts do look pretty good. Because one problem with the original sculpts is that it was very difficult to tell which character was what at times. This time they're going to make it a lot more clearer. Not to mention you can get them in Sun Drop. They're going to look awesome. It's Awakened Realms. What do you expect? But, I am tempted to grab some of this because you can get an upgrade pack. If you've just got the first edition and you simply want the new stuff to upgrade at the second edition, then great. We can do that, and that's about €55, so that's not bad. And I'm definitely up for some of these upgrades. I mean, having dual layer boards for players, definitely want those because it's very fiddly using those previous little tokens to work out, I don't know, how many actions have I got? Not entirely sure. Now you've got them all here on the board with your card, nicely colored, laid out. Fantastic. This all makes stuff a lot easier to deal with. And then you're going to have, the double-sided board with the 2 different locations. You're going to have all this different extra content. But yeah, it's definitely now the time to get into it. So I do recommend it if you've got the money to spend. And bear in mind, this is GameFound. GameFound has stretch pay, which is something I use all the time, which basically allows you to pay for the Kickstarter on a monthly basis. So you don't have to worry about having so much money ahead of time. You can just pay a little bit each month. And believe me, it makes life a lot better for Kickstarters. So you can't do it on normal Kickstarter. I think it's just a GameFound thing. And certainly when I see something pop up on GameFound, I go, ooh, because I know I'll be able to pay for it monthly. But yeah, a lot of stuff in here. Now, I like all these different upgraded stuff like metal markers, plastic, wood, the material bags, and insert. The old version does not have a particularly good insert to store the game, so I would certainly be up for a second go. They've mentioned a short mode, so you can have a simple alternate setup where you don't need loads of extra decks in a rulebook. You can just have a faster session. Always in for that. But yeah, I mean, it goes on for ages looking at all this new stuff and that. But definitely I would recommend at least to make certain that you get the full... That's the upgrade pack. Now I'm looking for... Here we go. Fall on Hope War Campaign. It's €29 on top. This is the Days of the Siege campaign. I cannot shout this from the mountaintops enough that this is one of the best campaigns you will play in a board game. 3 acts, branching paths, fantastic story, tons of routes to go. It is fantastic. This is what Days of the Siege is now. Make certain it's in your pledge if you are getting this. For me, I'm probably going to get the upgrade pack, but I would probably like... I'm either going to get the second edition anew, just so that I can have a better box. Annoyingly, you don't get the box and the upgrade pack. That's a little bit of a jerk move, but shipping and stuff, I guess that's why they want to do it. They have talked about this in their update, so they are at least upfront about this. But I definitely would like some of this other stuff. You know, some of these extra contents, memories from the past I don't have. Not fussed about the Rebel die and stuff like that. But I'm tempted to splash out a bit on this, because I do like this game and I would like to get it. So I'm thinking of maybe splashing out on some of these, like, you know, furniture tokens, possibly instead maybe get the acrylic markers. They'll look cool. I'm definitely getting the play mats, though. I mean, yeah, it's playmats. Of course I want playmats for this game. That's going to be fantastic. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to be getting some of this stuff. And, you know, I've already reviewed the game ages ago. So you can check out a really old review I did for that. In fact, is that on here? They've got my quotes around it. Yes, they have. Yeah, this War of Mine board game review. You remember this format for my thumbnails? This is old. Yeah, I reviewed this War of Mine plus the expansion. And then I did one for Days of the Siege. So I've done 2 videos. But man, they're old. God blimey, this is old school content for me. But, you know, certainly, if you're into a thematic, tough, gritty, dark game, I can't recommend this one enough. It is great. And this is going to give me a resurgence to want to bring out my copy out a bit more. And certainly getting a second edition version with upgraded bits and stuff will definitely make me bring it out more. Yeah, by all means, check this one out. It's not going to be cheap, but it's definitely worth it. Okay, right. That doesn't leave me a huge amount of time to talk about the main topic for today, but that's because there's not really a huge amount to say on that front. Predictions. Another Patreon suggestion, so thank you for that. But basically, there's not that many predictions I have, but basically you might have heard recently that there's a bit of turmoil in the industry, and I know that I wasn't going to spend ages talking about it, and I'm still not, but, you know, it is... You can't avoid the fact that America has got problems. And yes, this tariff situation is causing a massive ripple effect throughout the industry. We have seen closures from multiple US-based publishers who cannot handle the tariffs being so uncertain or so expensive. We've already seen Greater Than Games shut their doors, which really bums me out because 2 of my favorite games of all time made by them. We have heard that Cool Mini or Not are scaling back a lot because of it. You know, that's a massive company to be scaling back. But we've also heard problems from other companies that have either had to shut or, what was it? Boardlandia, I think was another one. And I know there's been at least a couple of others. You know, I've lost track of them all now. But basically, yes, it's causing problems. If you want to get games to the US or if you want to get parts made in China and shipped to the US, it's insane at the moment. And companies do not know what to do. Now, I am an accountant. A tax accountant, but I don't confess to being an expert on international tariffs. Nor am I going to claim I am. I am getting sick and tired of creators coming out with videos saying, here's the tariffs explained, thinking that they're economic experts. Okay, just because you can Google tariffs for 30 minutes and do a bit of reading does not mean A, that information is accurate, and B, you're the person to spout it out. I mean, I have seen some threads and articles from people who are out of their friggin' minds on their opinions on how these things work, and it's just clickbait. So I'm not doing that, okay? I've not Googled a ton of the research. I don't confess to know exactly how international tariffs work. All I know is that it's pretty much destabilizing the American economy at this point, and, we're going to see a lot worse to come if these things don't get sorted. But, I feel for you, America. I hope things can get back on track at some point soon, because it's going to hurt you in terms of board gaming. I mean, people pulling out of Gen Con, we'll get onto that a bit later, but yeah, I feel for you. It's not good, and I feel for these companies that have had to close. I feel for these staff who have been laid off, who hopefully can find work elsewhere. But it's not a good situation at the moment, and we'll see how things go. But yes, I'm not going to give you a lecture on how tariffs work, because I'm not the person to say. What I am going to do is just basically run through a few predictions that some of them are related to this and some of them are just the industry in general, just to kind of like, how do I think the industry is going to go for the next few years? And I got a few like quick notes down. I'm just going to sort of gloss over a few of them. Well, first off, yes, this tariff situation, if it doesn't get sorted, we're going to see a lot less US-based publishers and games, because it's just going to be insane for the cost. We've already seen some US publishers, kick the bucket or scale back. And, other Kickstarters, I mean, I mentioned Awaken Realms earlier. I mean, the first question that anybody asks is, what about the tariffs? But if I go back to the Awaken Realms one, when you looked at their prices, you'll notice it said, US pricing may be subject to change depending on evolving tariff regulations. At the moment, they just simply don't know. It's difficult to price these kind of things. And so what else can they do? But there are some people who literally just cannot afford to ship to the US right now, and it is problematic. So I think that as a result, we are going to see less US-based publishers. If this turns out to be a permanent thing and it doesn't get sorted, then is it all going to be a focus on Europe now? Are we going to expect most of our new games to be made by European publishers? I mean, there's already a bunch of European publishers, but are we going to now see that dominate even more than before? Because I think the market was technically dominated, I think, more by Europe than it was America in the first place. And there's other pockets around, New Zealand and, and stuff like that. But continental Europe, France, Italy, Prague, Czechoslovakia, Scandinavia, there's quite a few games that come from those countries, and definitely I think they dominate the industry. With the US in turmoil, it could be a lot more, and to be fair, I dare say I probably have a collection more built up of European games than American. I don't know. I mean, in current shot, my argument's not going well there, but then you're looking at pretty much the American section of publishers there, like Fantasy Flight and stuff, but there's quite a few European games around, so we will just have to see how things go. But I reckon there's definitely going to be less USA-sourced games and publishers going forward if this doesn't resolve. Next one, unrelated to... Well, actually, let's go for the ones that are related to this. I also think there's going to be a reduction in Kickstarter activity generally. Now, some publishers need Kickstarter to get their games out. Otherwise they don't function. So those ones are still going to do their bit. But sales are going to be hurt by the fact that they can't easily ship to the US if people aren't willing to pay the inflated tariff costs. So you now have a situation where Kickstarters might be less prominent because some just can't afford to do it anymore. But the other thing is that maybe because less consumers are able to afford the Kickstarters because of the tariffs, it may be that we don't see as many projects in the future. And certainly I don't really back anything that isn't a reprint or an expansion these days. It's rare ever that I back something that is brand new. I'm still waiting on Stellaris. How long's that been in production hell? And actually, God, yeah, where's Academy Games based? Academy Games, I think, are probably based in the US, aren't they? Might have to check their updates. I'll have to double check where they're based, but yeah, that could have been affected. So, we're just going to have to see. But yeah, I reckon Kickstarter is going to be taking a little bit of a downturn. Not like gone. There's still going to be, I think, plenty enough projects, but I don't think it's going to be quite as, major as before. And certainly, I do recommend to you folk out there, be very wary of preview content now, because Remember, preview content is basically an advert to sell you games. That is all it's for. It's not a review of the game, it is an advert. And basically, they are now trying to advertise to you a game which might cost you an arm and a leg now because A, game prices have gone up, but B, if you're based in the US, the prices will be even higher. You better be certain you want this game before you start forking out your money for it. Next one, similar to this. Convention depletion. I don't think conventions are going to die out, but I think that some conventions are going to scale back a little bit or lose a bit of money because of publishers just not going to them. I mean, as I say, with the US shutting down a few publishers, they could find that some conventions actually have to scale back. Well, they probably don't have to scale back. Maybe that's the wrong term, but they'll have less people attending them in terms of publishers. Because there was recently an announcement that after Greater Than Games got shut down effectively, they're part of the Flat River Group. The Flat River Group has a lot of companies under its belt, and the Flat River Group is not attending Gen Con. So who else is not going to attend Gen Con? I mean, do you think Cool Mini are not going to attend Gen Con on the basis that they're not developing any new games and it's just current stuff now? I mean, that's what a lot of conventions want the publisher to do. They want to sell a ton of stock, or they want to showcase, here's the next new hotness, give us money on our next Kickstarter. So does that mean a bunch of publishers are going to pull out of some conventions and there'll be less attendance? Maybe. I mean, this is possibly something that's not going to happen. I mean, I'm not saying these predictions are going to come true. They're my predictions out of my brain based on some of it guesswork, frankly. You know, it's not like I know what the future is going to hold, but this is just something I'm kind of thinking, oh well, you know, maybe this could be a thing. Next one, right, these ones are less, these aren't to do with the tariffs and the US situation now, so these are completely unrelated. More duel games. Have you noticed recently that the publishers are getting obsessed with duel games? There's a duel for everything. We had Azul duel or whatever that was. We've had King of Tokyo duel. We've had Living Forest duel. I swear there's been at least another couple of duel games announced recently, and one of which made me roll my eyes. I mean, there is a duel game coming out for just about every franchise now. Did we really ask for these? I mean, personally, I'm not a fan of these. I mean, yes, I love Seven Wonders Duel, but then Seven Wonders Duel was a two-player version of a game that didn't work at 2 players. A bunch of these other games that are getting dual versions did. I mean, you know, what was it? King of Tokyo, good example of one that actually didn't work at 2 players, so that one's actually fine. But then Living Forest worked fine at 2 players. It didn't really desperately need it. Another one, Azul Duel or whatever it was. Seriously, a duel is basically a 2-player game anyway, because you can't concentrate on the other 3rd and 4th player. You're only looking at your other person next to you, so it might as well be a 2-player game. Why the hell did I need a dual version of that? And like I say, everybody is getting obsessed with this, and I don't think the craze is going to die out soon. I think this is the new craze, which is replacing the other craze, which is the other prediction I'm sort of segueing into. There's going to be less roll and writes. I think roll and writes is starting to die out a bit. Occasionally some roll and writes come out, but they're not as common as they once were, and there's certainly a lot less of them. You know, we've gone past this phase of a roll and write version of every game, like you got on Kickstarters, like the Isle of Cats one and the Dinosaur Island one and stuff like that. We've gone through that bubble, and I think that one's kind of burst now. What's the term? Bubble burst, whatever. But we've gone through that phase. We're at the other end of it now, and I think we're not seeing as much, if any, of those anymore, which is good, because I really was getting sick and tired of those. But, you know, some exceptions, Twilight Inscription, I mean, a few others, but they're very extreme exceptions. But I think we're going to see less roll and writes in general, because I think the duel system has now become the new craze, the new trending, you know, gimmick. So I think we've just basically replaced one gimmick with another. Do I prefer the old or the new? Honestly, I'm kind of indifferent. I was never a massive roll and write fan in the first place, and I'm not desperately in the market for all these duel games either, because I don't play a lot of 2-player games. Now, there are, like I say, some roll and writes are still being released. There's Anarchy, or whatever it was called, yeah, from Garfield Games, which is basically meant to be advanced Hadrian's Wall, as if it needed to be more advanced. I mean, it looks like it will give you the same kind of feel as Hadrian Wall, which is meh. too cluttered, not enough interesting stuff to do. You know, I'm not that fussed about it. But if I get a chance to play it, I will, but I'm not exactly excited for it. I'd much rather play their Skella Bra one or whatever it's called. I forget what it's called, Skella Bray or something. But it's part of their historical theme series, and most of those historical theme games have been mostly meh for me. I'm not that fussed. Really, I want their new expansions for the Tigris stuff and the new trilogy games, because they're the ones that get my attention. But yeah, more dual games. Yeah, more dual games, less rolling rights. And I think there's one other I thought of. I'll see if I can think of any more on the fly. But Kickstarters, I think, will die a little bit. You know, not crazy, but I think we're going to get a reduction. However, I think the Kickstarters that are going to stand out and the ones that are going to be a bit more prominent soon are big campaign expensive Kickstarters. Now, we've had a fair few of these things already, like the days of Gloomhaven, and oh yeah, I think that was actually another one that was affected by the US thing, but we'll see. But you know, Gloomhaven and a few others, you know, have had big, massive boxes with huge price tags and huge campaigns that you'll never finish, or at least never see all the content in them, and they've been immensely popular. Well, we've had a couple recently that are just going like insane. I mean, there was, you know, I've seen a couple of games in massive boxes in retail stores, which I'm like, they're like £200 for like the game and £100 for the expansion. And it's like, for God's sake, what the hell is in this thing? Is it made out of solid gold? You know, we've had the recent Iridia, where lies dare tread or something. And it's like, you know, I've never played the game. I don't really have an interest in playing it. It's a big campaign game. I don't have time for massive campaign games right now. But mainly I don't want to play it because the retail asking price is about £200, £250. Screw that for a game of toy soldiers. No. There's a limit to how much money I need to spend on the game. And all the defenders of this game are coming out saying, I love the game, my cost to game ratio is nice and small because of the hours I put into it. Cost per game ratio doesn't work as a metric, okay? I get a lot of fun out of playing Love Letter. Yes, the cost per game ratio is minuscule because you play it for about 30 minutes and the game costs you about $8 to buy. But I still get a decent amount of fun out of it. I haven't factored in how much cost it is per hour or any nonsense like that. But yeah, you might get a bunch of... But you know, I can spend £30 on a half price Steam game and get that kind of time in. I mean, I'm spending like hours and hours and hours on Baldur's Gate 3, and that game cost me £40 when I bought it. I waited for it to come down on sale a bit. So £40, and I'm spending for a game that's giving me more hours than your Iridia game is, okay? £250 or whatever it is for a game. The game should blow your friggin' mind. And unless the game does blow my friggin' mind, it's not going to justify the £250 basic cost. That's not even including expansions and stuff. That is just the basic cost of the game. Up front. On a gamble, whether I'll like it or not. Sorry, I don't spend that kind of money on a gamble. I am past that phase. No. So, but the thing is, they're now popular. People have been coming out to the woodwork and saying, oh yeah, I love this game. This is so fantastic. I don't care if it cost me £1 million. I love it. And there's been a couple others. I forget their name. There was like a fantasy one that I mentioned. That was the one that was like £200 massive box with a £100 expansion. I forget it is. It's really relatively new, but I can't remember what it was called. They all sound generic. That's the thing. They all blend together at this point. But that's the thing. People seem to be very forgiving of these ridiculously expensive base price games as long as they're big campaign games. When publishers start realizing this, particularly the new publishers who haven't made a game and this is like their life's work, like Iridia was, funny enough, actually. I think that was a life's work for somebody, you know, like one game that they've designed. I think other people are going to start jumping on this bandwagon and going, well, you know what? Cost ain't a problem anymore. As long as we promise a crap ton of campaign content, we'll be fine. We can charge £250 for your game, and it's all well and good. Well, I'm not spending that kind of money. No, okay? That's not happening. But I think we're going to see a few more of them, so watch this space. That's all the ones I wrote down. Are there any more I can think of? I mean, we've already seen that the tariffs have affected the industry negatively. So if that continues to spiral out of control, then we're just going to see more damage in the industry. Conventions, we're not going to see any new conventions, but we'll probably see a decrease in attendance by publishers on the mainstream ones. We'll still get all the typical come here and play games in the hotel conventions, and they're still going strong, so that's not a problem. Types of games, as I mentioned, big campaign Kickstarters, I think are going to start getting a slight resurgence. Dual games are now the gimmick of the trend now, so that's going to be the future of a lot of games, because, yeah, we've had a bunch already. There's still a lot of games out there, and publishers want to milk what they can. So given the situation at the moment, rather than try something new, they'll just take a property that they know already works and just try to augment it slightly. So, that's a way to make easy money. But, yeah, hard to say what else is going to really happen. I mean, types of games, I think we're definitely seeing less innovation in games. We're definitely probably in a situation where it's difficult to come up with the stuff that is new. So we're basically going to have to make that decision of what does this game replace and is it worth it? I suppose I could say that we're definitely going to get some... No, actually, no, I'm talking rubbish now. I don't think that will be a thing. Yeah, it's, as I say, we don't really know a lot about what's going to happen in the future. It's just it's one of those things, and the economic climate is definitely the big factor that's affecting it. But then I think games in general, I suppose actually no, I have reminded myself of the one point, more reprints. So we've had an Ultimate Edition of Innovation out, which I have ordered. I have ordered a copy. I'm going to compare that to the 4th edition before and see if I prefer which one I prefer. Might do a brief speed review on that, or maybe talk about it on a podcast. But we are seeing a lot. I mean, This War of Mine, the 2nd edition, as I say, we're seeing 2nd editions and re-implementations come out a bit more now. And I think, given that coming up with new stuff is a bit more dangerous at the moment, I think we're going to see a lot more reprints and re-implementations, which I'm actually all up for, really, because they bring some more light to the game, they bring more awareness, they get you playing those games that you maybe haven't taken off your shelf for a while, and they fix problems that were in the game before, whether it was components or just rules in general. So I'm down for a few older games in my collection getting 2nd editions or re-implementations. I ain't got a problem with that. The question is, are they going to do it right? Because, let's take 2, for example, the Quacks of Quedlinburg. Have you seen the god-awful artwork that's on the new cover for that one? Oh my god, it's hideous. And then also Energy Empire. I'm down for a 2nd edition of Energy Empire. It's a fantastic worker placement game. I do not like the look of the new version, though. It looks like there's Stark and then there's bare bones. Like, there's just nothing in it. And it's like, I want like a 2nd edition re-implementation of cleaner rules and rulebook and stuff like that, but I don't want that artwork. So it's a bit of a catch-22. Sometimes a re-implementation can be good, sometimes it won't be. But yeah, there's a few predictions that I've got. If you can come up with more, by all means, shove them in the comments. It'll be a very interesting read. But my throat is drying. It's nearly 11 o'clock at night. I'm going to go get some sleep. That's it for me on this episode of the Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up and leave your comments, as I mentioned. Keep them civil, keep them on point, as always. We're trying to have a good community here, not flame wars. And look forward to my future content, whatever the next video might be. I suspect there'll be a few days before the next thing I put out, because I'm quite busy for Monday and Tuesday. But you've had 2 solo videos and this, and a bunch of reviews recently, so I think you got enough content to keep you going for a few days. But yeah, normal service has effectively resumed, and I'll get on with editing this one tomorrow. So hope to see you at the UK Games Expo, at Manorcon, at other HandyCons, GridCon, Essen. Yeah, more conventions to come. So take care, bye-bye, see you soon.